Welcome to Bloody Good Horror, covering the best and worst of the horror genre since Halloween 2007. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello everybody and welcome to Bloody Good Horror. My name's Eric and I'll be your host for this evening, where we will be discussing Deathgasm, a movie about gasms of death. Also tonight, I don't know, maybe Joe will give you the history of metal, if you're lucky, if you've been good. I'm the editor-in-chief over at bloodygoodhorror.com. Joining me tonight, first up, clad in the most sensitive of fabrics, denim. His name is Mark.
The touch, the feel of denim, the fabric of our lives.
Yeah, it's a great jacket. I'm just saying, if you thought you were going to wear that tonight and not have me mention it, come on. What are you even doing?
Maybe I wore it because I knew you would mention it.
Twist. Next up on the show, hot in the middle of his 31 days of horror journey, you might say. His name's Casey.
Yes. Hello.
No Schnars tonight because he's a loser, but we do have this guy who basically does all of Schnars' jobs but better. He's the beer expert at bloodygoodhorror.com and the music / heavy metal expert, which just makes him perfect for tonight's show. His name is Joe.
Oh, I feel bad for John.
Joe, didn't you also just run the Chicago Marathon?
I did, yeah, this past Sunday.
So you have hit all of John's bullet points. Like, why do we even need John anymore? Is my point. I don't know. Wow. I'm just saying.
That man has a family.
Coming out the gate swinging.
We're here tonight to talk about Deathgasm. Is this film Australian or New Zealand?
New Zealand.
Okay, that's what I thought. And
we perhaps
lots of exciting stuff going on at Bloody Good Horror because it is almost Halloween.
A little spooky time.
Mark, exciting stuff going on at BGH in regards to Patreon. Would you like to walk us through some of that while we start?
Sure. So in John's absence, I'm going to do my best to kind of cover the Patreon business. We have received all of the stickers, coasters, and t-shirts, and we will be mailing out the t-shirts in the order in which people subscribed. So if you became a patron in the first month, that'll be the first wave of t-shirts that go out. If you became a patron in the second month, they'll go out after that. So John will be posting updates to that stuff, but we have the shirts. They look great. They're ready to go. And John's also going to start sending out the stickers and coasters, which I have sitting in my desk right now. So if you're watching this live video, you've got sweet stickers and coasters and all sorts of cool shit. So that's what they look like.
Wait, I got it too.
Yay.
I got my coaster.
Yeah.
BGH.
So that's for Patreon supporters at certain levels. And
by the way,
awesome.
the green and orange sticker, baller.
Hey,
I gotta say.
Yeah, shout out to our friend Burrito Breath, Phil, who did the design for the new logo, which lends itself to all sorts of color combinations. I've got some ideas brewing.
Just throwing this out there, but maybe we should do like a denim one.
Yeah. We could throw patterns in there. I was thinking tie-dye, maybe some camo.
Like one for America.
Like a patch that you could like sensitively safety pin to your denim jacket, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Just spitballing here.
I got a show coming up at a coffee shop.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, so that's what's going on. That's what's going on at Patreon. People have been wondering about shirts. I know that, people are probably getting sick of us kind of giving updates every week, but this stuff takes time.
People are clamoring for their BGH merch.
I know. And we also will be enabling the sale of those shirts on TeePublic soon. We haven't totally worked out the timing, but for those of you who don't want to become patrons for whatever reason but want to buy the shirt, you'll be able to get that pretty soon as well.
A bunch of jerks.
Yeah. What's your problem? That's your
That's
goddamn.
not something someone in a denim jacket would say, Mark. What else? You are, so people may not realize this, or maybe they do, but you are the managing editor of Bloody Good Horror now. You run the day-to-day, you hit the buttons and make the things happen.
This is the uniform of a managing editor.
You do it all.
Content-wise, what's going on at Bloody Good Horror right now?
Well, I have to back up. I have to ruin your perfect segue and back up and say that the app is 95% ready to go, and I'm hoping to have it up to share with our Patreon patrons as kind of a beta this coming weekend, either over the weekend or early next week. We've been testing the shit out of it, but we need a little more help, and we'll be leaning on our patrons to do that. So that's one thing.
Are we going to get to a master beta at any point? Is that gonna...
I get it.
I've been making that joke for 20 years.
Anywho, so we've been doing lots of awesome shit at bloodygoodhorror.com as usual. We've got reviews every day. I mentioned this last week, but I'm going to keep mentioning it. Through the month of October, we have tasked all of our writers with writing a top 5 list, and we're calling it Toptober. And we have a whole bunch of them so far. We just published the top 5 worst items to find in your trick-or-treat bag. We've got
Candy corn didn't end up on there, did it? Because I love that shit.
No,
I don't even understand how that could be considered.
Wafers ended up on there because I fucking love me
Only
some
in my older years, Joe, have I realized that there is a contingent of virulently anti-candy corn people, and dare I say, possibly anti-American.
Well, those people are
on
assholes.
top of it.
Like I don't understand how you don't like that.
Like, are they at least pro candy pumpkin? I don't understand.
I'm gonna guess if you're against candy corn, that you're against all variations of it.
God,
Yeah.
such shit. All right, other ones we've got top 5 worst people to go trick or treating with. That was Cece's earlier in the week. Top 5 Halloween shorts from Luke. We've got top 5 unexpected jams for a Halloween mixtape from Casey. And there's one more that is escaping me right now, but it's there. So
the uses for a pumpkin, right?
unconventional use. Top 5 unconventional uses of a pumpkin. Yeah.
So I don't think it's hit the web yet. I would have known because it would have destroyed the internet. But I also wrote one.
I know.
I think
this
it's
is the
worth
part where
mentioning.
we all congratulate Eric for writing something on the site for the first time in
you.
like 2 years.
Thank you.
Yay! Proud of you.
Shut
I
it
knew you could do
down.
I'm like that CeeLo gif. I just drop in, hit the button, and my chair spins around.
Joe's gonna be dropping some beer knowledge. I'm actually slacking in my Toptober list, but I've committed to doing top 5 matches from WCW's Halloween Havoc. So we've got some cool shit coming up. And also, since I know this is running long, we are dabbling in the world of television yet again because our writers are itching to do some TV writing. So Cece is doing American Horror Story Hotel. Evan is doing Scream Queens. And Sophie has very enthusiastically committed to covering Ash versus the Evil Dead when that comes out at the end of the month.
Yeah.
So bloodygoodhorror.com for all of that stuff.
Yeah, Ash versus the Evil Dead. It's happening.
Looks very cool.
And remember
American
the
Horror
hashtag,
Story.
tweet with BGH.
Oh yes, and also, also, so they wrapped up the new class wrapped up the Hellraiser series, thank God, so they can return to Lives of Sanity. But Cece is going to be live tweeting American Horror Story with the hashtag.
She's doing it tonight, right?
She's doing it tonight.
Yes.
So tweet with BGH is that, and keep an eye on that hashtag because anytime we're doing a sort of tweet along thing, that's what we'll be using.
Hashtags. We got them.
Oh, and thanks to everyone that entered our Instagram giveaway. We're giving away Witch Baby soaps and some Titty Bats paraphernalia. And
What if they teamed up and made Titty Bat soap?
Titty soap.
Yeah, there we go.
Titty baby soap.
Yeah.
Soapy
Titty
titties.
Baby soap, sure. There you go. So, all right, that's it for me. That's like a lot of shit, but bloodygoodhorror.com is where you can find all that stuff.
Very nice, Mark. Doing a bang-up job there. bloodygoodhorror.com.
Making it happen.
When will my list be running? That's what I want to know.
Back to me.
I'm actually going to do it on November 1st. That's all the hype.
November 1st. Awesome. I'd like to point out, too, that I have the awkward picture of you with Serena Vincent has returned to the chat this show. And then the other side, I'm flanked by a Schnars with a mustache. I'm actually going to leave him there the whole show because he just makes me feel better in general. But I wish, like, so if anybody knows Serena Vincent, I would like them to send her this picture because it's just so she looks so amazing in this picture, just like vibrant and glowing, and you just look like a baby kangaroo.
I don't even what?
You look like I don't know,
That doesn't make sense.
like a baby marsupial. Mark, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
Anyway, the lovely Serena Vincent, everyone.
Did
All
we,
right.
did we want to talk about Scream Queens quick? Speaking of,
Sure.
Hey, dude, I hope your list is better than that burn.
It wasn't a burn. It's not meant to be a burn. It's a compliment. Scream Queens, you guys are watching it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Very cool
story.
Actually, it's we are. It's interesting because when I watch it, I almost feel like I'm not supposed to be watching it because it's very sort of tongue in cheek, like sorority, and it feels like a show probably someone 15 years younger than I am should be watching, but there's a lot of sort of inside humor to like the 90s, which always kind of gets me. And I'm a sucker for any sort of sorority show. I don't know if any of you guys ever watched Greek, but that show was dynamite.
I don't think I did.
Yeah.
Scream Queens is great about going over the top, and they've got some really great homages to good slasher flicks and stuff too. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
this
I-
week's,
I was
I watched
honestly
half of this week's.
surprised- You watched
Go
half.
ahead, Mark.
I've only ever seen the first one, but I was surprised at how like offensive it is. It's pretty funny. They really
Yeah.
go for it.
There's some
We've had-
decent gore in there too. Like
and some decent gore too.
How
We've
much
had kind
is
of this
Jamie Lee
internal-
Curtis up in it?
she's in there
lot.
a lot. Like she's a main character.
Yeah.
You know, we've had this kind of discussion among the writers over the past couple of days. We were reading this article, I can't remember from where, that was kind of deriding it. I think it was a Chicago Reader article, maybe, but
Yeah.
deriding
Chicago
it for
Reader and
being,
Tribune.
being really offensive and insensitive. And like we were having a discussion about whether or not it was like knowingly offensive. And I would argue that it definitely is also just kind of like, it's like really surprisingly profane.
Yeah.
There's no way it's not not intentional, because I mean they're just so over the top. And I think Joe, when we were first passing that, I think it might have been Joe when we were first passing that article around, and the people are saying it's misogynistic and racist and stuff like that. But the show's portraying horrible people, and they're playing those horrible people over the top.
Right,
It
Yeah,
fits.
right.
it's very like yeah. Casey's exactly right. Like I think it's really good.
That's the point.
Right? You're allowed to write characters who are shitty people that say shitty things, because that's the
Yeah.
whole point.
Yeah.
Well,
have
especially
watched-
in a horror movie, because then you want to see him die.
And I have
Oh,
watched
yeah.
the first episode of American Horror Story, but it's kind of like if you've ever seen the Nine Inch Nails video for Closer, like an entire hour long version of that. So I don't know how many episodes I'm gonna make.
I'm not gonna lie, I do like me some Lady Gaga.
Oh yeah, that show is very like season by season. Like I can watch. Like there's certain ones.
I haven't seen a single episode, Joe.
Yeah. Well, the first season was very good. Then everything after that is kind of hit or miss.
But I have
Are
seen
they-
the entirety of The Office about 57 times.
Lady Gaga.
Are they totally different stories every time? Are they at all?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Every season is a whole different. I mean, it's usually the same like cast, but completely different stories.
I
Kathy
do,
None of
Bates
them
and
really
every-
tie
do
into
like-
each other.
They
I do like that as a concept.
Yeah, she's only been in the last
I
3
will-
seasons.
Gaga's been in all 3 seasons.
No, Kathy Bates. This is the
Oh,
first
okay.
one of Lady Gaga.
I'm most excited about the presence of Kathy Bates on the show.
Yeah.
All right.
I was gonna say though, on Scream Queens, it finally came out on why that one sorority girl wears earmuffs all the time.
I saw like somebody posted something about her being Carrie Fisher's daughter, right?
Yes, and she wears them in honor of her Princess Leia
Is that
buns.
true? Like I looked at her IMDb page and there was no mention of her being related.
So does she also have a coke
Yeah.
now?
If you look at Carrie Fisher's page, it says she had with one of her ex-husbands that she's her daughter with there. It's got a mention there.
Oh, all right. Well, there you
So
go. Interesting.
And they say love is dead.
Amazing. Joe,
Yeah.
what are we drinking tonight? Speaking of Carrie Fisher,
Ooh, I don't know how that ties into this.
she's been known to like her drinks.
Oh, I see.
Buy
You
it.
know, I think it's topical. What are we drinking tonight while we
That's
review
insensitive.
Deathgasm?
Uh,
Mark, I'm not here to make friends, okay?
So Deathgasm, a fun little tale about some metalheads who end up conjuring up some demons, and there's a lot of references to playing a song backwards or, playing a record backwards. And in honor of that, I picked a beer from a brewery we've talked about a few times, Three Floyds Brewing Company in Munster, Indiana. And this is their backmasking, which, if you're not familiar, backmasking is the
Wow.
art of recording a song backwards that is meant to be played forward. So,
Joe, that's like you could not have found a beer that was more on point with what the movie's about.
right, I was very excited.
That's incredible.
So
And your beer was almost good enough to cover your beer and the word of the day.
that was actually, I was IMing with John earlier today when he got sick, so he couldn't make the show. But I'm like, if you're gonna do a word, like, here's a couple suggestions.
You just wait. You just wait, Casey. We have a backup plan for the word of the day. Don't you worry about it, little buddy.
But anyway, backmasking is
no.
an oatmeal stout that comes in at about 6% alcohol. Three Floyds, I've talked about them a few times. They actually do some really awesome beers. A lot of collaborations with metal bands. So these guys are kind of the perfect fit for this movie. They actually did a beer called Evil Power, which I paired with one of our movies that I do not have in front of me. But it was with Lair of the Minotaur, which is a band that actually is featured on the soundtrack for this.
It sounds like a band.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Sounds like something.
But anyway, oatmeal stout. I mean, this one super smooth. They actually put oats in the in the mash when they're brewing this, so it actually gives the beer like almost like a creamy flavor. Doesn't have like a real bitterness. Like sometimes people when they have a Guinness, they kind of get that bitter bite to it. Not like hops, but more just like the roasted malts and stuff. Sometimes can be a little overpowering, but oats really kind of mellow that stuff out. So it's like a super drinkable beer. And this is one of my favorites. Like I love this beer, and like everything Three Floyds puts out is always super good. Unfortunately, they don't distribute that far outside of the Midwest. Actually, that bar that John and I talk about, the Pony Bar, managed to get some kegs of theirs a couple times, but that's really the only time you're going to find their stuff like on the East Coast.
Do you miss the Pony Bar, Joe?
Every freaking day of my life.
Is there anything equivalent to it in Chicago?
The only thing we have found is actually a small brewery opened up probably about 10 minutes from our house, called Exit Strategy, and super good food and really good beer. So we go there a lot.
Are
Joe,
you
why
already
haven't you
a
told me
legend
about
there
it?
as well?
So they actually have a like a mug club, which I was too late to get a part of, but I pretty much go there every weekend to fill up a growler, and I ask the owner like when are you going to release more. So
When are you going to put my name on the wall?
yeah,
Joe,
goddamn.
why haven't you told me about it, and why haven't we been there yet?
Mark, I have actually multiple times over I am, and we
I
haven't
don't
been there.
believe that's true.
We haven't been there because apparently you haven't been listening to me.
I don't believe that's true.
Mark, it's Joe's fortress of solitude,
I
okay?
choose to believe that's not true.
All right.
But anyway, Three Floyds Brewing, or what is their website? It is. Oh
Yeah,
dear God.
People can Google it.
Yeah, whatever.
It's
You'll
fine.
find it.
Yeah.
The number 3 Floyds.com is their website. Definitely, if you can find their beers, or if you know that someone that can, by all means, definitely pick up everything you can of theirs. Super, super good stuff. So there you go.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Nice work, Joe.
Thank you.
Let's take a quick break and review Deathgasm.
I grab this, and I turn it on, and I say, "Prepare yourself for the Utica Chain Store Massacre."
No, that is incredibly dangerous.
Don't worry, the chain is off.
No, it's not. Hey guys, this is Danielle Harris. You might know me from some of the Halloween movies, and you're listening to Bloody Good Horror.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. From the prime time, bitch. Main feature.
And we're back. Joe,
Oh,
we don't need no stinking schnorrs, do we? I don't think so.
it's happening.
He's overrated, you know? We're going to do something here that we haven't done in a very, very long time, which is allow someone else to do the... You've basically been doing the word of the day for Schnars anyway, so we might as well just do this. So let's take a quick break. Stand by. What do you got for us tonight? The word of the day with Joseph Charnews.
Well, this word is actually approved by John because when he thought he was going to be on the show, I sent it to him and he was all over it. So today's word of the day, and listen because I need to sort of explain this, is cult. But it's not actually spelt C-U-L-T. It's spelt K-V-L-T.
What?
Yeah, it looks like it's pronounced Kvlt.
Tell me more about this cult thing, Joe.
So from the online resource Urban Dictionary, epitomizing the musical ideals of sub-underground black metal, the kind of stuff that comes out in limited edition 300 vinyl-only labels based in a cave in Belarus. The exact requirements...
Or Belarus, either way.
Yeah, whichever.
The
exact requirements for Kvaltness vary depending on who you talk to, but usually involve icy, impenetrable production, black and white cover art, and concepts drawn from black magic, pagan myths, or out of nihilism. So pretty much this cult, or KVLT, is something that's kind of spawned from black metal, which is featured a lot in this movie. And it's all, I mean, it's pretty tongue-in-cheek. You'll see it on a lot of like metal websites when they're talking about a black metal band. Like, is this cult or is this not? Like, you know, pretty much like a mainstream, which there's really not, but like a well-known black metal band that like goes into like an actual production studio and records an album would not be considered cults. But you have a lot of these bands that only put things out on like the definition said, like 300 limited edition vinyl only, and you can only order it. They don't actually sell it online, or like you have to find
black metal hipsters, basically.
Exactly. Like it's a lot of this stuff is kind of turned into like how obscure can it get, and like it sounds.
Would they wear denim or no?
They would wear black denim probably.
All right. There's like patches on it probably too.
But it's pretty much, you know, like who can out underground themselves. You know, there's some that I've actually seen will only sell like 10 copies of their album for like a day. Like it's just ridiculous crap. But yeah, so it's almost become like very tongue in cheek. Like, is this cult? Is this not? Like, you know, so I think that's pretty fitting for this movie.
Joe, I gotta say, I feel legitimately enlightened right now.
Absolutely. You can look up. There's a lot of memes using this. So KVLT. Check it out.
You nailed it, buddy. How about, could you forget the review? Could you just tell me about different metal stuff for the next like hour?
I have watched so many documentaries and read like so many books about black metal. It's pretty impressive stuff.
I watched that one documentary on Netflix about the Swedish band, Norwegian band or something, about the guy who killed himself, and then the other band member.
His skull.
Some weird shit about something. I don't know.
Are you sure you watched that? Or I know we've talked about it. Mayhem is the name of the band.
Yes.
Oh no, listen. We talked about it, and then I went and read the Wikipedia page on it. That's what happened.
Yeah.
Same thing basically. Wikipedia is like the modern documentary anyway.
Man,
There's
like
actually, I don't know if you guys watch this all the way through, but there's a scene at the very end of this where there's a record playing backwards, and I don't want to give too much away, but pretty much it's kind of these two characters talking, and one of them is pretty much chiming in from the beyond, and he says, "Hell here is awesome." The original lineup for Mayhem is down here, and they're playing like, so, yeah,
Incredible.
yeah.
All right.
It's called Dark Side of the Moon. You've never heard of it.
Yeah, exactly. What you do is you start the Wizard of Oz. Mark,
Yeah.
you know what? As long as we're giving Schnars his jobs away here, let's spread the love. Why don't you tell us what Deathgasm was about?
I love it. No matter how many times I prove how bad I am at synopsizing movies, I'm still your go-to. But this one, luckily for me, this movie does not have a very complicated plot. It centers around Brody, who is recently sent off to live with his aunt and uncle. And Brody is a metalhead. He's a little bit of a nerd, but mostly a metalhead. And he wants to form a band. He forms a band with a cool new guy in town who is a bad influence on him. And when they break into a house, they find out it's a house of a local or a musician who is kind of out of the game, like a metal musician they all look up to. And he gives them some sort of like crazy satanic sheet music, which of course they play and then summon an ancient evil. So it's you know, kind of starts off kind of your low-key metalhead story, and then they summon this ancient evil, and then they realize that they have like completely fucked everything up, and now they have to Now they have to kill all of these sort of possessed people in the town and figure out how to undo what they did. And there's some stuff that happens in between, but it's mostly just kind of a segue to get to like metal music and crazy gore and demon killing.
Incredible. I was looking up briefly. We said this is a New Zealand film.
Yep.
Written and directed by one Jason Howden, perhaps.
I've been looking up a little bit. I can pick up where you're leaving off here because I've been looking at this.
Great.
He is mostly a visual effects artist for Weta Digital, and so that makes sense when you watch this movie.
Weta.
For those of you who haven't heard of it, Weta is the special effects house that Peter Jackson founded, and it kind of formed around the time that like Dead Alive and Bad Taste and those movies were coming out, and now is like, they're involved with the Hobbit movies and Lord of the Rings movies, and they work on more sort of, big budget, huge stuff.
They've gone like fully, modern digital from like the roots of that old school like latex stuff.
Totally. But they're all, they have their hands in pretty much anything that has like hardcore special effects. So this is Jason Howden's first movie, which kind of makes sense because it's really effects heavy and a pretty awesome.
It's also my understanding that wet is like a huge thing in New Zealand and actually is like very important to the economy down there, which I find really fascinating. So
I believe that's true.
Joe.
Yes.
There were rumors that if you play a muted Deathgasm and Iron Maiden's live after death simultaneously, it syncs up perfectly due to precise editing.
I saw that. I saw that was on
filmmakers have yet
IMDb
to
or something.
comment, according to
Yeah,
IMDb.
that would actually be really interesting. I'd kind of be curious to see if that's really true.
Does it matter? It could be true. I think that's important.
Let's just go with yes.
Yeah. Hey, Casey, just round table here. Do you have any expectations for this? What'd you think going in, and how'd you feel about it?
I had zero expectations going in other than I knew what it was about. I knew the name. It sounded cool. So I was in there to get in. And we haven't had a good demon movie in a long, long time, since like the 80s. So I was a little bit excited to see demons, some kind of demon carnage like Night of the Demons or Demons from back in the 80s. So that was always good stuff. The first half of this movie was pretty good. I liked the build-up and everything. It didn't lose me at all. But this movie didn't really become awesome until all the craziness started happening. And then when it went over the top with the blood and gore, it really went over the top, and it was pretty great. It was a blast, and it felt like a true throwback to the 80s with those kind of demon movies back there.
All right. Mark.
Yeah. So longtime listeners of the show will know that like Dead Alive is my kind of go-to for favorite horror movie of all time. And this reminded me a lot of that for obvious sort of reasons. The humor's kind of there. The effects are there. It's also reminded me a lot of Knights of Badassdom, which we did an episode on, which I was a little bit disappointed with. And this to me kind of feels like a better version of that movie. I'm a little skeptical of just kind of like jockeying metal for irony's sake, but it seemed like in this case, they weren't really, they were pretty dedicated to it. And it really sort of came through. Like, to me, Knights of Badassdom, that kind of like climactic scene where they're playing music is just like the cheesiest, worst music ever. And this like seems like, whoever was behind it really kind of had a sense of, as ridiculous as it is, like had a sense of metal history and like black metal and all that sort of shit. And there's lots of like references buried in there that I'm sure Joe will get to. I kind of agree with Casey that there was the beginning was kind of funny and caught my attention. It lags a little bit in the middle. And then the last, let's say 20, 30 minutes are just absolute fucking insanity that I loved. So I thought this was pretty good. I didn't think it was like incredible, but I enjoyed it a lot.
Joe.
Yeah. So I've been reading about this for a while. I keep up to date on like a lot of metal websites, and this one's kind of been floating around for a while. So I think I was the one that kind of pushed for us to actually watch this. I was really kind of excited, and almost to the point where I was a little worried that it wasn't going to live up to my expectations. And, maybe, I think as I'm watching it, I kind of mentioned that at the end, there's kind of this mayhem reference. And when you get about, I want to say 20 minutes in or so, these guys start a band and they record this just ridiculous video, which for anyone who knows anything about sort of black metal or even like metal in general, you've probably seen this. The band Immortal has this video from when they first started, Call of the Winter Moon. And I think I sent it to you guys in email. I don't know if you looked at it, but the video that they make is pretty much, you know, a rip off or a goof on that video. And that's where I kind of decided that I really love this movie. Because as Mark kind of mentioned, usually in movies you get, oh, there's the metal guy, let's put a Motorhead t-shirt on him, and like that's it, and like he'll headbang, and that's it, he's metal, like that's what we think of him. But
LOL.
yeah, like you can tell that the writer director Jason, I'm sorry, I forget his name, but like he really knows the genre, and like when I say genre, I mean like metal music, and like really likes it, and you know, kind of has like a knowledge, and it wasn't just kind of like throwing a guy with like a spike jacket in there and saying, all right, now we've got two metal guys. You know, this reminded me a lot of like Black Sheep or, you know, other New Zealand like sort of splatter movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a huge fan of this. I liked it a lot. And actually the further I get away and the more I think about it, the more I actually like it and want to watch this again.
Really?
Yeah.
It's honestly, we watch so many movies for the show. It's rare that I ever think to myself, I gotta watch this again. So when I do, I did not feel that way about this movie, but that doesn't mean I didn't like it. Yeah, this was another one not really on my radar because I don't pay attention to things. Really, I mean, like with a name like Deathgasm,
You don't get a good cell signal up in your tower there.
with with a name like Deathgasm, really could have been anything. Who knew? So I popped it in, and I pretty much agree with everybody else. It's a very, you know, like I have other things to say that may sound as, you know, discouraging. That's not my overall feeling. So let me just say straight off the bat, like it's incredibly endearing. I think the love of the metal stuff, like Joe talks about, so like comes through. I think the actors are great. The lead guy is this really perfect, that mix of like metal but also kind of nerdy outcast, and so
who was apparently a Power Ranger at one point.
Oh, really? Awesome.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of variations of the Power Rangers since
Yeah, he was like RPM, or I forget what it was. I was looking at his page
it's
today.
Power Rangers Regal RPX, I think.
Yeah, sure.
It's like the cushy seats. So that stuff's really fun. Like clear influences from 80s splatter films as well. It's very Evil Dead 1 and 2, even right down to the editing style and the way they use the gore effects, the sound effects. It all is very early Sam Raimi. So it's a lot of fun. It's very endearing. And I think my overall feeling is if that sounds like something you'd be into, you probably will like this. My broader feelings on this movie are it seems so weirdly out of place in 2015 to me. And I can't say where New Zealand pop culture is, but, you know, Eastern, you know, like US pop culture right now is almost in a lot of ways moved on to 90s nostalgia, which, whatever. I mean, there's no 90s equivalent to this movie. You wouldn't make like a boy band movie. That's not really my point. But it's just like, if I had seen this movie 10 years ago, it literally would have blown my mind. I would have been freaking out about how incredible and out of nowhere this movie was. But I kind of feel like I've seen something like this like 10 times over the last decade.
You know, at the risk of like kind of sounding like that guy, I was listening to You Made It Weird, a podcast that I've mentioned multiple times in the show, and we talked about it a little bit last week, with Jermaine Clement from Flight of the Conchords, who was also in What We Do in the Shadows. And he was kind of talking about, like, you know, they were talking about what it's like to be from New Zealand and, you know, kind of be involved in Hollywood. And he spends like a lot of time talking about how New Zealand is sort of stuck out of time in a way.
And this movie totally feels like that.
Well, and that's obviously a gross generalization. Like I heard that on a podcast and I'm just repeating it. But like that sensibility makes sense when applied to something like this, because it does really feel like more like those late 80s, early 90s kind of Peter Jackson, Weta movies that,
Sure.
I mean, that's what I liked about it. I agree with you that it doesn't make a bunch of sense.
It didn't ruin
the
movie for me at all. It's such a fascinating aspect of it to me.
Well, no, it's like, it's just really earnest, you know, in like all of its influences, which I think is a really endearing quality about it versus some other movies that tackle like similar subject matter.
Yeah.
It wears it on its sleeve in a way where it's hard not to like just be like, oh, that's cool.
I mean, I think it's tough to do a like quote unquote like metal movie now, because I think when you talk about like the average person who doesn't listen to that type of music automatically kind of jumps back to like the 90s and like a Sally Jesse Raphael episode where they had
The
like
West
Guar
Memphis
on.
3 or something.
Yeah, like you know, like it's definitely it was a very like sort of even like late 80s 90s thing where, you know, they had like parents on talking about how their kids are like worshiping Satan because they listen to like Judas Priest. So I think, you know, a lot of it still sort of has that stigma, but I mean, and again, this is why I kind of jump back to like how much I like this. Like this sort of humor and like the bands that these guys are talking about really reminds me of like one of the sites that I really enjoy is Metal Sucks, because like they write about the music, but it has definitely like a snarky sort of sense to it. Like they understand that like a guy running around in like corpse paint looks ridiculous, but you know, they still like the music, but you can sort of, you know, separate the two.
I mean, there are lulls in this movie, but the points that hit really hard, like the scene where the guy is in fucking corpse paint eating ice cream with that girl sitting on the bench.
Oh my god,
It's a funny,
so funny.
It's a
such
really funny
stupid
movie.
It's such a stupid gag, but it's so funny.
It's funny in the ways that, and we discussed this briefly over email, but it's funny in the ways that I felt like, and we all kind of talked about, Cooties should have been. Like, go for these dumb jokes, go for everything being way over the top. And this movie, you know, there's a scene in which these guys are fighting zombies with, like, one of their parents' boxes of sex toys. Like, literally slow motion, banging a zombie against the head with, like, a giant black dildo. I'm sorry, I don't care where you come from. That's funny. You know,
I mean, and as a well,
that kind of humor crosses national boundaries.
as a nerd, the guy loading up the paintball gun with the D20s was
Right.
Yeah, that was awesome.
like, but even compared to, I'm gonna keep coming back to this, like even compared to Knights of Badassdom, it's almost the exact same subject matter. And I think if you go back and listen to that episode, you can kind of hear us talk about this, that like you could just go a little bit further. And this movie is what happens when you take that movie and you take that concept and you go like way further.
Yeah.
You go like
Yeah.
just crazy.
Well, definitely, because this, like we've all said, this movie, when it's leading up to the first half of it, it's pretty good. I mean, I'm not trying to discount that fact. The guy did set up these relationships and built these characters and stuff, fine, but it got really good when he went over the top.
Oh yeah,
And it went
absolutely.
yeah.
Right. I don't care at all about the relationships, you know, which is fine.
No, but again, in contrast to Cooties, it's whatever. It's all light, surfacey stuff, but you really like that main character, dude. You really you really connect
And
with
you're
him over the
rooting for
movie.
him.
You're rooting for him,
Yeah.
and when he comes through in the end, you're like, yeah, you know what I mean? Where you got none of that with Cooties because everybody was just kind of like not cool.
Yeah.
Did everybody
As
else get
a,
pissed off when his buddy ended up making out with this girl?
I was about to say, as a somewhat chubby kid wearing Metallica t-shirts in high school, him, you know, if he's gonna get the girl or not, hit home pretty hard.
I found that aspect of it super fascinating too. Typically in this movie, this guy would have a crush on the pretty cheerleader girl, but then he'd have the mousy friend or whatever that he would figure out by the end that he's really in love with. But this movie almost kind of goes full on fantasy, where in this film, she's just trying to like slum it and like piss her parents off. So she just goes with this kid. And by the end of the movie, she's all black metal. That just seems so weird to me because it just seemed, it's an interesting twist, I guess.
Yeah.
Because
It was
usually
great,
the
though,
movies
because
try to tell you that that character's like, you don't want to be with that character. You want to be with this cool person over here.
I'll
you know?
100% tell you that does not happen in real life.
Right, it doesn't happen either. So it's total like, it's total kind of fantasy, like wish fulfillment. You know what I mean?
You lose some weight and you cut your hair and then you'll get married.
That's Joe's sequel to this movie.
You-
Boom.
You go to college in another state.
Reinvent yourself.
You throw your Metallica and Megadeth t-shirts out and pray to God no one finds pictures.
Joe.
Damn, now I'm sad.
Joe posts lots of pictures from his teen years on Facebook, and his creepy faces are incredible. Just like
That hasn't changed over time, though.
no, it totally has. Look at Joe. Look at he's just this like handsome adult with a baby. You know,
I look at those old photos and I want to just go scream at my parents like, what the fuck? Why didn't you make me change?
I mean, that's how I feel about pictures of me in high
listen,
school.
Joe. All that stuff went into making you who you are today. You got to just appreciate that.
Look at me now.
Yeah, exactly.
You are the sum of all of your experience, Joe. Believe in yourself.
You know, so it's interesting to see that this is kind of the guy's. I don't know if it was his first film, but it looks like one of his first.
It
movies.
was, yeah.
And it very much feels like, you know, we've seen enough of these over the years. You can kind of peg the tropes where when you kind of make your first horror film, you know, you're doing what a lot of filmmakers do, a lot of artists do in general. You're pulling your influences from the people you love. And that's where you get the strong senses of Sam Raimi and stuff. I would really like to call a moratorium on the extended quick cutty snap zoom montage where you put stuff on before you fight zombies. I get it, bro. You like the Evil Dead and Army of Darkness. But, and again, this is probably just a symptom of us doing 250 of these shows and seeing so many movies like this.
Totally.
Cool.
Well,
maybe do something else. It's just a little thing that annoyed the crap out of me in this movie.
But I mean, as an extension of that, right? Like we were talking about this on the Cooties episode.
Because it happened last week too.
Well, it happened last week, but it's not just that. It is when you're in a movie, like a zombie movie, or in this case, it's practically a zombie movie, like from an action perspective, even though they're demons. Like there's only so many things you can do when it's like a small group of people just running around trying to deal with shit that's coming at them, trying to kill them. And that to me is like when I was talking last week about how I have kind of reached the point of exhaustion with that sort of thing. You have to be super creative. Like if you think about a movie like Dead Alive, you think about the scene with the priest, you think about like the weird embalmer guy. Like they had to, in order to make the zombie thing not really boring, they had to come up with all this shit that A, doesn't make any sense, and B, is just totally ridiculous and fun. And I think they do that. And it's like we talked about, like I can't name a memorable action sequence from Cooties, but I will think back to a number of sequences in this movie that I'll be like, oh my God, remember that time he was slapping the demon with dildos? Like that's like,
Oh yeah.
you know,
those are the kind of moments I'll remember, not his like homage to the Evil Dead. You know what I mean?
Well, but I mean that's what you aspire to, right? It's like in a movie like this isn't. It's like it's not an award-winning movie. It's not a terribly heady movie. It doesn't leave you with like a gut punch. You just hope that you leave it being like, there were like 3 scenes that I thought were really funny and really memorable.
Yeah. I think for me, like this movie this week and Cooties last week just got me thinking that, and it's really not, I don't mean it to be a critique on Deathgasm, because I really like this film a lot, but it's just the last 2 weeks have made me think about indie horror in general. And I guess partly what I say about this movie would have blown my mind in 2005. That's when you started seeing that wave of filmmakers so influenced by the 80s and getting those 80s influences really coming back strong in indie horror. And you just were like, you got so excited by that stuff. But I'm kind of over it now. Like now when I see an indie film like this, it's kind of why I really didn't.
We're also just like over everything, right?
But
like,
whatever. I mean, it's also why I didn't like Wormwood, because it's like great. You watch a bunch of 80s horror movies and basically copied everything in them, and you're.
I mean,
Australian.
Wormwood was just not very good. I think.
Yeah,
that was
but it's the same thing. Like, this movie's really rough around the edges too. But where it succeeds is when it's just doing its own wacky voice.
Can you imagine what it would be like if podcasts existed in the 80s, where like you just didn't. You went to a video store and you picked up a movie based on the cover. And like, you just watch so much garbage. You know what I mean? Like we don't as a podcast don't really take chances. You know, like we watch movies that are either in theaters or that enough people have recommended that we want to listen. You know, so like as far as those movies go, this is like awesome. This is fucking great.
Yeah,
you know, we're not watching like bottom of the barrel 2-star shit on Netflix.
Part of what I like about it too is like the rough around the edge thing. Like it feels like a first time. You know, we were talking about Green Inferno. It's like it's not cute anymore to look like a first time filmmaker on your like 10th movie
when you're 40.
But here it totally, I think, lends to the endearing nature of the whole thing.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see like what this guy does next.
Yeah.
They definitely hint at a sequel in this, and I would be super excited to actually see what that turns out to be.
But like to Mark's point, if this was in the 80s, if I would have come across this movie in the video store and the cover for itself is a little low key for the movie itself, it's just the hand shooting the devil horns. But if they had a played up cover and they played this in the video store, I would have picked it up from the cover and seen it was something about a death metal band, took it home, and it would have blown my gourd.
Oh yeah.
I picked out this movie called Deathgasm. I know I'm 10, but I want to watch it.
Yeah, I agree. And that's
if I had found this like 15, 20 years ago, like I think I would still be watching it with like Night of the Creeps, like around this time of year, like especially around like Halloween.
That kind of lends itself to what Mark was saying about it being a feeling of a timeless nature. But unfortunately, we are humans who are bound by the laws of time. So it's hard for me to, look at it not with my 2015 brain. I still really liked it. I don't want to.
Yeah. Agreed.
But you're bringing it down, man. What was everyone's?
It can't be a whole love fest here, Mark. Come on.
What was everyone's favorite kind of like kill in the movie or scene?
I thought
Hard
it was
to get past the sex toys.
the sex toys were
really-
great. Actually,
really
I think one of the funniest gags, and it was a little throwaway thing, but when the whole movie, his like bougie cousin is bullying him,
We do have the same brain.
and then towards like
Oh, yeah.
in the third act, like all the shit's gone down, and they've just gotten to the point where they've been forced to kill a bunch of like demons for the first time, and they're in the house, and the cousin walks in, and he immediately lobs the top of his head off with the machete, and he clearly wasn't possessed, and the guy's like, "Dude, what are you doing?" He wasn't possessed. He goes, "Oh no, man, didn't you see him? He was totally
He said,
demon."
Yeah,
he
he
said some stuff about the devil. I heard him.
Yeah, and then they just cut away, and it was like that was such a great little comedic moment.
If you're talking about like a throwback aspect in this movie, that's exactly what that was. It was just so like gleefully stupid, and I loved it. I thought that was. We do have the same brain because that was what I was gonna say.
No, it was hilarious. It was great.
You know what else made me laugh? That was so dumb. But in the beginning, he's having his fantasy about being in a metal video, and he's on the mountain, and he's got the two chicks in leather flanking him, and he just like looks down. What does he do? He links down and winks his eye or something, and then her like suddenly she's topless.
Shoots like fire bolts out of his eyes.
Fire
or
bolts,
something.
yeah, and then she's topless. I don't know. That was dumb, but I thought it was kind
It's
of
great. Yeah. I mean, there's just
Dude,
like the thing I like about this is, and I think I've already said it a few times, like I'm really excited that you guys like this because I was kind of like, for someone who doesn't listen to a lot of this music and kind of get into the genre, like, was it like too over the top? Like, I feel there's really like a danger of going like too far where you just kind of alienate people.
No,
but
because to me, it's like, I think you have the music minutia there if you're into it, but in
Yeah.
a lot of ways, this is really just an 80s nostalgia film on top
Yeah,
of
for
it,
sure.
because, as you
Yeah.
get farther away from a decade, the things you remember are just the things on the fringes almost. Do you know what I mean? Like when you think of the 70s, it's all hippies and tie-dye. When you think
Yeah.
of the 80s, it's like either crazy, like pop, or it's heavy metal, or, So I think in a lot of ways, because of how much those things influenced the 80s horror we all love, it just kind of feels like that. You know what I mean?
yeah,
My only real problem with the death metal aspect of this, especially with the real world bands and everything, and it's not even a real problem, it's not a real gripe or anything. Trivium obviously had something to do big with the soundtrack or sponsoring or something, because they were all over this movie.
so they're actually like they're pretty well known. I think they're Swedish or something, or Trivium. Oh, actually, no, they're from
Is
Orlando.
that like the yogurt,
What the
like Activia?
No, they're
Ruby yogurt?
They're like
Actrivium, it makes you poop.
Actrivium.
they actually. So I kind of stuck around and like, excuse me, watched the credits. They don't even have a song in the soundtrack of this. So, and I think the one thing about this is actually kind of sparked me like going back and listening to a lot of these bands that I haven't in a while. So
I kind of like that scene where they were picking a band name too.
Mm.
It's funny.
Joe, with you being the metalhead, did they have any poser metal bands in there, or were they all legit?
actually, it's like Trivium is the only one that I don't actually listen to, and I'm not like a huge fan. But no, I mean, and I know I've said this over and over again, but like the thing I liked about it was they actually had like real metal bands that like people listen to. Like,
But you also, I mean, and Joe, like when you talk about this metal stuff, I mean, aren't there a lot of very different camps?
oh, it's so
You know what I mean?
subjective,
So like even to sit here and say that the metal that Joe loves is the real metal and not the poser metal, there's probably somebody out there right now listening being like, Joe, come on.
Well, yeah,
you
no, I
believe
mean,
in metal?
Well, it's not. It's not.
not to
even
go
so
back to
much-
the word of the day, but it's that sort of meme that's floating around now on a lot of these sites. Is this Kvlt or is this not? Like,
Well, it's
is-
not even. It's to me. It's not even so much like a particular band. Although there is that aspect of people who are like those bands. That's a poser band. It's just committing to it. It's just whatever.
Yeah.
It's just getting
Yeah.
really into it, even if because the opinions are never going to match up 100%. But again, to like jump back to, I think I have, I played drums and yelled in a bunch of shitty punk bands in high school. It's the same thing as like watching a scene in a movie where someone's playing music. It's like,
And they had
you know,
Peter Dinklage.
well, you just have to you just have to try. and
Joe, wasn't there some weird thing with the music in that movie too? Wasn't the music like kind of off or something?
I feel like we talked about it. Honestly, I not that I blocked a lot of that, but I don't remember a ton
I feel
of
like
that.
I remember you being very upset about the use of music in that movie.
Yes, yeah, I definitely was. I don't remember why, but yeah. I mean, I think it comes down to what I've talked about a few times already. Is like, a lot of times they toss out, oh, this is metal, but then they're like, oh, Iron Maiden, because that's like a band everybody knows. But like, with this movie, like I feel like they really kind of got deep and like went into like the actual genre. I'm also a little drunk, so.
Loud typing.
Sorry,
Mark?
that was my fault.
Click, bleep, bleep, bleep. Deathgasm. Anything else? Anybody have anything else to say about this?
I would say
movie?
that the conversation we're just having about all the different subgenres and how they take themselves seriously and stuff like that. They had a good joke about that in the movie where the girl said something about where it sounds like he's just You mean he's the singer? You mean he just screams? And he's like, oh no, that's screamcore. And then there's grindcore. And then he rattled off a bunch.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I think I talked about it over email too. Like that, like all those genres that it kind of rattles off are like real genres. And he's right. Like those are like literally just guys going, but some people are into that.
How did that go again, Joe? Awesome. All right, guys, that's Deathgasm. Would you recommend this movie, Mark?
Yeah, totally.
Casey?
Certainly, and I just want to be clear, I don't have the thumb out.
Joe?
No, I'd say skip it. I've like jerked off about this movie for the past 45
Joe,
minutes.
but this is the little capper on the end of it, just so we're all clear where we
No,
all stand.
absolutely. I loved this movie.
Jeez, I love like 249 episodes in, Joe's questioning the, structure of the show.
What do we do? What do we do here?
What are we even doing? All right,
He's
guys.
disrupting the formula, bro.
I'm with these guys. I know I had some things to say, but it's totally worth it. It's fun and endearing, and obviously made by people who love metal and love horror, so can't go wrong. That's it for Deathgasm. Let's take a quick break and do some fan mail.
Ten years ago, Halloween, evil had a shape. Terror had a night. And now he's back.
6 bodies, Sheriff. That's what I've seen. I tell you, Michael Myers is here in this town.
Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers. He's come home to kill. Halloween 4, rated R.
Starts Friday, October 21st at theaters everywhere.
Hi, my name is Quinn Lord, and I'm from Trick or Treat, and you are listening to Bloody Good Horror.
Send your emails to info@bloodygoodhorror.com or hit us up on Twitter at BGHorror with the hashtag AskBGH. And don't forget to pick up back episodes of the show at podcast.bloodygoodhorror.com.
And we are back. Looks like we lost Casey. We're gonna
We
dip him
lost
out.
Casey, but boy, is his avatar a treat.
But we gained his incredible avatar. Yeah, I have no
want
idea
Casey
what.
to be here, but I also want him to get kicked off occasionally, so I can just.
I have
see
no
that.
idea what that is about right there.
No, it's
So
cool.
anyway, I totally forgot to get fan mail together, you guys. So I'm just gonna read it straight from my Gmail. What's the worst that could happen? I apologize ahead of time for the
You
clicky.
need to update your credit card information for Hulu Plus.
Yeah, I apologize ahead of time for the clickies you're about to hear, but sorry.
Can someone add Casey back in? He's back on the internet.
Yeah, stand by here.
Do. I can't get enough of it. It's so good.
It's a pretty good thing. All right, Miss Scapegoat says, this is info@bloodygoodhorror.com, and actually this was from Twitter, so... She says, I'm totally listening to the podcast about The Nightmare because I finally watched it. And you're totally right. It doesn't feel like a documentary. To me, it's more like 6 people who aren't drunk anymore at a party at 3 a.m. just talking about some weird shit. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually that came up to me recently. My fiance was talking to me like she's like someone I was talking to said they saw The Nightmare and it was like the scariest thing that they've ever seen. And
Nope.
I do and we talked about this on the show. I think it's about people who have experienced that probably find it very scary because they can identify with it. And I've never experienced it, so I just thought it was like really silly, like unsolved mysteries.
Maybe,
reenactments.
but I have experienced it for years. But it's not about I don't know. But the best comment we got about The Nightmare was the person who wrote in was like, the whole time, didn't you want to just be like, bruh, you're dreaming. Like that's it. It's like it's in your brain, dude. It's like there's no friggin' shadow people coming to kill you. I'm sorry. It's not how the world works.
Maybe there is, man. Maybe you just don't get it.
Maybe, Mark. Oh, so anybody who's been tweeting at all about Deathgasm knows that the team behind it very enthusiastic about retweeting, favoriting. Always love that. But without calling this person out, I will say to this one person on the team, for the love of God, please do not send automated direct messages on Twitter when people follow you. And I really would like to push this out as a PSA to everyone.
Thank you for your interest in Deathgasm, movie about deathgasms.
Everyone on Twitter, if you have an automated DM set to go to people that follow you, you are doing Twitter wrong. Please stop.
I tweeted something, this was years ago, but it was when Paul Rudd did that like single ladies sketch on SNL, and I got followed by like a Beyonce fan Twitter thing just because I mentioned the word Beyonce.
Thanks for your interest in Bebe.
Yeah. Oh, I see you're a devotee of Queen Bey.
But it's just like, have you ever once gotten an automated DM from somebody that you followed and gone, oh, well, that was really nice for them to set that up and send that through a robot?
Yeah. Oh, that sounds like it's from a real person.
Not for nothing, but if you sent me a like hand-tailored message about thank you for following, I probably would also be upset by that. So, listen, man, do your thing on Twitter.
About that.
I do.
If somebody said like, "Hey, thanks for following. Your hair looks really great today, Joe," I'd be like,
"That's
really
different,
nice.
I guess." Okay, a personalized compliment. I guess I would be into that. But
that's weird. My name's not Joe. Why did you say my hair?
Mark, your hair actually is on point today. I gotta say.
Thanks for following, Mark. Doesn't Joe's hair look great today?
Yeah. I presume they forced you to get that haircut in order to let you buy that denim jacket.
Hair game on fleek, son.
Yeah. So last week on
wig.
This one's also from Twitter. This is from BC Likes You, just a delightful gentleman. Last week I was talking about how I had this weird moment with Elijah Wood where I was realizing how tiny he looks, and then I realized he's probably taller than me, so that's probably what I look like to other people, and there was just crickets on, like no one else seemed to relate to that. So BC writes in regards to realizing how short you are by seeing someone else who is short, yes, this has happened to me. I went straight from, wow, look at that tiny man, to, oh, that's how I look.
Yeah, I can.
So go ahead, make fun of BC, Mark. Go ahead.
No, I won't, because I know him in person. Yeah. I've stood next to him and hung out with him before.
The struggle is real, Mark.
The struggle is real, man. Yeah. The League of Petite Gentlemen.
For me, it's more old guys. When I see tiny old dudes, I just think of how like weird I'm gonna look when I'm like 80 years old.
Oh, you're gonna be like a hobbit.
Yeah, because I'm not getting taller.
What if you shrink? Holy shit!
I will.
I can't wait for the day when I'm old enough to shrink to Eric's size when he's.
You would have to be 140.
Oh man, I just pictured an Eric-sized Casey, and it's funny. I like it.
Anyway, I think that was it for fan mail this week. The last thing I see before that is that amazing email about the Joe character from last week. So anyway, info@bloodygoodhorror.com. We are also on Twitter.
We are.
What?
At BG Horror with the hashtag AskBGH. Mark, Twitter us.
Yeah, so this first one is from Spookit, or Spookit, because it's the Book It logo.
Book It.
Spookit podcast. Getting a little nervous. No one has mentioned reviewing the Goosebumps movie. My 90s nostalgia won't be able to handle it if you don't. I am pretty sure that we are going to do it. I think there's an overlap that week. Is that true?
It's the 30th. It's Halloween weekend, right?
There might be 3 movies because isn't that the same Vin Diesel week? And then there's something else I thought we were talking about reviewing.
Isn't that the new Paranormal Activity as
Yeah.
well?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, well, we're definitely going to be covering it on the website. I'm pretty sure that we have somewhat committed to covering it on the podcast. I think we definitely should because I think it would be a great.
I could see us
thing to
catching
talk
it at
about.
least on video. I think we all were of that age to have some experience with that. So,
Yeah, we will be doing it.
except maybe Casey. Casey probably
sooner
read like
than.
the Hardy
Oh wait,
Boys.
it comes out this weekend.
Oh, that was the overlap. Crimson Peak or the Goosebumps movie.
And then is there something the week after that? Crimson Peak?
Well, I think next.
I don't know. We don't have John.
Hang on.
I would really just like to review Steve Jobs if that's okay, because that movie.
Absolutely.
Oh man.
Michael Fassbender.
While Joe's looking up this information, go see The Martian because it's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
Yes.
Is it? I've
This
heard-
weekend we were watching Crimson Peak, but Goosebumps also comes out. Next weekend, Paranormal Activity comes out, and The Last Witch Hunter. And then the week of the 30th, nothing comes out.
Oh, let's do Goosebumps then.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the first week. So
But The Last Witch Hunter.
yeah,
No.
I mean, you kind of got to make a call of what's gonna hang around the longest.
Will either of those still be in
I
theaters?
honestly I think Goosebumps is gonna do well. I think that there's a strong enough nostalgia tie to Goosebumps specifically.
I saw a trailer for Goosebumps, not a trailer, but like a TV spot the other day that seemed like tripping over itself, going out of its way to make sure it pointed out that it was okay for kids, which led me to believe that maybe
It's
there's been
PG.
some. It led me to believe that maybe there's been some focus testing where people didn't realize it was supposed to be a kids movie because literally it was like it's totally okay for kids. Says
Dude, as-
random critic number 1.
I mean, it's
In
rated
my-
PG, so it's not. They're definitely not going for like a. I don't know stuff. I don't know.
Well, I was just saying, like, I was like, as my, my October viewing, my required October viewing, I just watched Monster Squad. So, like, Goosebumps isn't going to be Monster Squad,
No.
certainly, but
I just whenever I see a second or third trailer this close to release that suddenly has a very different message from the other ones, I always just get the feeling like the studio's panicking for some reason and they tried to switch the messaging up.
I mean, they did nail Jack Black. Like they got him on board.
That's true. I mean, that's tough.
the Jack Black. All right, next one is from
Hot off his appearance as the homeless guy in the Muppets movie. No, I'm sorry. He just plays himself in the Muppets movie. Never mind.
Gulliver's Travels.
Louis
and whatnot.
C.K. is the homeless guy in the Muppets movie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
God bless him. All right, next one is from Talleyrand5. Will Schnars be wearing this live? Perhaps it's too modest for the young plutocrat. And as you will see in the stream, it is a photograph of a muscular gentleman in a deep V.
That V, man. I love just Schnars the way he just nonchalantly rocked that V. You got to give it to him, I guess.
If you got that body, you got to let your clothes hang off you, you know?
You look like you have a slight V tonight, Mark.
Oh, yeah, it's a shirt.
Yeah.
Next one is from Super Vince 2000, like your Twitter handle, Super Vince. Got any recommendations for a good pumpkin 40? Do they even
40?
make pumpkin 40s?
I don't know. I don't think that's a thing.
You could just drink a pumpkin. It's got the alcohol content of a 40.
What if you just
Yeah.
put nutmeg into like an Old English?
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you're gonna find a pumpkin 40. I think you'll find the 22-ounce bombers. And yeah, I would go with the pumpkin or Fisherman. I forget the name of the brewer. They make like a pumpkin stout. I would go for. But yeah, I'm sorry, I got nothing for you.
Yeah, pumpkin is probably the best buzz for your buck.
They put that in 4-packs this year too. It's not just in the bombers.
I haven't done it yet.
Neither. I have not. I've actually pumpkin. The Dogfish one is actually the only pumpkin beer I've had this year. I don't know. Just haven't been in the mood.
Yeah, there's not too many different. We've probably collectively had all the different variations of it at this point.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Next one is from Metal Prof. If Deathgasm is the average of death and orgasm, am I experiencing it just sitting here on the couch doing nothing?
Maybe.
Ooh.
You are slowly dying on that couch, as all
That's
of us are.
deep.
Yeah.
Yep. Next one is from Brett Stroll. Can Joe pick the perfect black metal band to fit each crew member's personality?
So I think before you came on, Mark, I originally said no and got really scared, but then immediately started thinking about it, and I 100% have these.
Go for it.
Nice.
Good news, Eric. I've got visual representations as well.
Love it.
So first one being John, I would put as Beersum. For the sole reason that he is just a giant racist. I sent you a picture.
Oh, poor Schnars.
If you've got that up.
Look, he really set himself up for that whole thing. I mean, he did go to Duke.
Just huge racist. Actually, Beersum went to jail for I forget how many years for murdering one of the other members of his band.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. They're actually making a movie out of it, supposedly.
Is he like Norwegian or something?
Yeah. All these guys are from Norway. Get super into it, but
That's what happens when you don't get enough sun, man. You get that vitamin D deficiency. You just get weird.
Start killing people.
Yeah.
Eric, I would call you, and there's your picture. I would call you Gorgoroth, because their old lead singer, this guy Gal. Actually, there's some really great interviews with him. Pretty much, he just lives in the middle of the woods, and is completely off the grid, and almost insane.
I'm into it.
But like super interesting.
Joe, you're describing my retirement plans right now.
Joe, my question is, where do you get your grease paint if you're living off the grid?
That's a good question. Mark, and you're going to be super pissed about this, but it's the best. Mark, I would call Deaf Haven, because they are considered by many to be the new sort of wave of like hipster black metal.
Hipster black metal. You know what? The world is a weird and wonderful place. Is all I got to say about that.
Right. And then lastly,
it's not in the right category, Mark. But I suggested baby metal for you.
And lastly, Casey, I would call immortal because there's this guy Abbott who just looks like one of the meanest guys you'll ever see, but he just seems like super friendly. And actually, one of these magazines did this whole sort of photo shoot when he was in London.
That picture's amazing.
Right? Like, it's just him walking around London being a tourist, but like in full corpse paint. So he just seems like a super sweet guy. He just looks like super evil.
Bravo, Joe. Nice work.
Good job.
Oh, shoot. All right. I don't know how the fuck we're going to follow that, but we're going to try. Next one is from Blue Daisy 90. What horror movie needs a remake that hasn't gotten one yet?
Ooh.
I mean, none. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like we've had this conversation before.
Yeah, you could dip way back in the classic well and remake some.
My soul to take.
Hmm.
Here's a question. Do you guys think that Saw is ever going to be remade?
Yes. 1000%.
Honestly, that's a really good point. Like, I feel like that might not be a bad one to remake because I feel like it's a really good premise. But if you go back and watch it, like the acting is just so awful.
Like, not even making a value judgment on it, but just how could it not be remade?
Yeah.
I could see that being remade in the next 5 years by the same crew.
And if they're smart, they'll remake it in a way that will make sequels easier, so they don't have to bend over backwards or retcon everything every time they want to do
I
it.
died, but I'm not really dead.
Yeah,
and I was there before the thing happened, but then I was there after, and I was a zombie, and I was.
And this other person, I told them what to do 10 years beforehand, and
I mean, but any franchise that's had that many sequels deals with that, right? Like, how many times is fucking Jason?
The Saw franchise brought it to like almost avant-garde, like experimental art.
Well, they didn't own the ridiculousness of the retconning, like, whereas something like Friday the 13th, they're like, you just accept that Jason is like buried somewhere and he comes back to life because he got fucking struck by lightning. But in Saw, in each of the movies, they had baked in segments that explained how they got from movie to movie, which just made it worse.
That stuff became, at some point, doing them for the show, that stuff became my favorite parts of those movies.
Oh,
I'd rather see him do like a Tarantino thing and take all the Saw movies, cut them up, and put all the scenes from all the movies in chronological order from beginning to end.
Yeah, and then put show in a theater, marathon it.
Yep.
Spoiler alert, it still doesn't make any fucking sense.
Still got the guy from Linkin Park in it.
You know what though, Casey? Because a lot of it happens like at the same time. a lot of it's like meanwhile, like when they go back and in future movies, it's like you saw this happening, but it was really this.
Yeah. Next one. This is actually a really good question that I don't think we've ever gotten before, and if we have, it's been a long time.
Is this also Blue Daisy?
This is also Blue Daisy.
I can't show her tweets because they're protected. So.
Okay. How did this podcast come together originally?
Bloody Good Horror was originally a site I started in college. Mark was in high school. It was like 2001.
Eric started all by himself, built a website,
okay, Mark. So we were around for like 3-4 years, then just kind of dropped off, and then around 2007, summer of 2007 or 2008, we started
2007
putting things back together. Mark was either in college then or whatever. Like we both sort of had a lot more knowledge and could do it in a better way. So we, while we're starting to bring it back, we started like looking for writers. And I actually got in contact with Night of Living Podcast, asked them if they could put out a kind of notice like, hey, we're looking for writers. That's how we found Schnars. I don't know if it was how we found Casey.
Yep.
Through Night of Living Podcast. And then Shelton, Andy was pretty soon after that, like the OG crew. And we just started doing it, and it's just like but that was just the site, and the podcast didn't start till almost
Halloween 2007.
Halloween, yeah. So almost a year later, maybe. I don't remember the time exactly, but we just like, it wasn't new at the time. You definitely had other horror podcasts, but you could feel it starting to blow up. And I just remember thinking, I don't think we can do this well, but I feel like we should be doing this. And so we just kind of jumped on it and started doing it. And it took us like, no lie, maybe 200 episodes before I felt like, okay, we know what we're doing now.
Right.
And even then, it's like still, I feel like every 50 episodes, I feel like you get some evolution of it.
We just had to find Joe, and then everything came
So I was
together.
gonna say, like, really around 100 is where you guys really
The funny thing is, like, Joe was friends with our older brother when we were kids. So, like, we knew Joe, but hadn't talked to him in years. And then he found us through Facebook or randomly somewhere online.
I think you and I became Facebook friends, Eric. And then I saw you, like, you had the site, like, on your profile. And I started reading it. I think I just randomly sent you a message of like, oh man, like I haven't watched some of these movies in a really long time. I like the site. And I think I commented on a bunch of stuff. And like at the time I was writing some beer blog and just randomly started writing and kind of went from there.
Yeah, it was just one of those funny things.
I still vaguely remembered the email from Eric when we were at, because we finally got the site going. We got all the writers in. We started writing stuff, and I vaguely remember an email from Eric saying, we should try this. We should try a podcast. I don't know if it'll work, but we should try it.
Also, the first few shows, I was stealing. So I was living in an apartment complex in Florida, and I hadn't gotten my internet hooked up yet because I didn't want to pay for it. And I was stealing Wi-Fi from the pool house, which was like maybe from my window was like maybe like 50 yards. Signal was like, and then I at some point I was like, crap, I gotta get real internet for this.
Somehow 8 years later, we still can't figure out this signal shit, but that's all right. But yeah, no, it's good. Little origin story there. Next one is from Blue State Pod. From the Cooties discussion, what are some other cool movies to have playing in the background of a Halloween party?
Night of the Creeps.
Night of the Creeps.
For sure.
I think Dead Alive is a great one. I think any of the Romero stuff is good.
I really like Night of the Demons.
Party recently where someone, or last Halloween, maybe 2 Halloweens ago, they actually were showing Drag Me to Hell and Cabin in the Woods, which I thought it was pretty cool to have kind of projected.
I could totally see Cabin in the Woods. Yeah, I think you can't go wrong with just good old staple like the Friday the 13th movies either.
Yeah. I know Eric, you're not a fan, but like Trick or Treat.
Trick or Treat.
That's exactly what I was just...
Sleepaway Camp.
High five, Joe.
Like the Sleepaway Camp sequels, I think would be a lot of fun.
Creep Show is a good one.
Creep Show, yeah.
Anything that has like a lot of volume, like lot of shit packed into a
you want like bright
shorts or like a full length movie.
You either want bright, colorful visuals, or you want something that's really gory, or like I don't know, depending on what kind of party you're having, maybe a lot of nudity.
Deathgasm, I feel like would be a good.
For sure.
I don't know, maybe it's like a dip your balls in the mashed potatoes kind of party, and you want something saucy, and you go in that direction. I don't know.
Well, it's gonna be
I think ABC's of Death 1 and 2 would be pretty good for something that kind of setting.
You know what? That might be the only way I would condone watching either of those movies. Not bad.
Yeah, for sure.
Casey, I literally just heard the sizzle of your e-cigarette across the signal. Just want you to know.
Sipping on some sizzle.
That's right.
Sizzle.
ABC's of Death. That's interesting because it's like almost like something that should be in a fucking art gallery or something, and like maybe not in a good way, like in a bad art gallery,
Like
but
a Brooklyn like hipster art gallery.
It's short
Well, it's
attention
like
spans
every-
theater.
Yeah, every short is like projected on the wall in a different room or something, and they're all fucking terrible.
Joe, can you send me some hipster black metal before the show's over? I just would like to listen.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, Deaf Haven, they're. I really like those guys. Actually, I think they're really good. But they would.
So what makes them hipstery? Just the clothing,
Yeah, I mean they're.
or is it somehow influencing the music?
They would
It's just
not.
like they
be
don't wear
considered
face
civil.
paint. They're like so over the face paint.
Yeah.
Is that what they do?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're also. I think they're actually from Chicago, if I remember right. Like they're, But I don't know. I like their stuff.
I guess my question is it the same music just with different clothes?
A little. They're a little less. Like sounds like it
Evil?
was recorded in somebody's basement. But yeah, for sure. I'll send you some stuff.
Delightful.
The next one's from RJNC, and it's a picture, and I'm not even going to bother. You can put it up if you want, Eric, but describing the picture doesn't really do any good for the people that are not watching the video, so I'm just going to skip over it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
Next one is from BC Likes You, who has changed his Twitter display name to BC Hates Candy Corn.
Oh.
What's it like being a candy corn loving communist?
It's great.
It's happy.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah,
I have
it's a happy
no teeth,
place.
and I've never been happier.
The government provides us all the candy corn we would ever need.
Yep.
We all have our roles in society. It's a fine-tuned machine. It's beautiful.
I fill the bathtub up at night and swim in it.
What we like to do is we like to take candy corn from the people that have a lot of it and redistribute it to the people who don't have a lot.
Right.
So Schnars
I like
would not
to-
be into candy corn, is my guess.
I like.
I
to
gotta
dip my
stay in
balls
the
in it.
line for tomorrow to get my candy corn rations.
Right, candy corn lines.
I'm actually probably going to
It's
buy
so
candy
good.
candy corn on the way to work tomorrow, just to spite you, BC.
It's so good. You get that nice texture and it's like chewy and sugary and
Oh yeah.
Tastes like the
pumpkins
bees
too. The pumpkins are great.
Oh my
they're
god,
the best.
just so much corn syrup density. I fucking love it. Last one is from Team 3MF. Joe, you should read this book. Awesome interviews and insight. I'm listening live. BTW.
Nice.
Black Metal Evolution of the Cult by Dial Patterson.
Oh, I've totally read it.
Look at that.
Yeah, it's pretty. I really like. Lords of Chaos. This is a little more like they kind of tell the whole story. The evolution of a cult is they kind of just take each band and kind of explain their history, which is super interesting. But like, I think if you don't know the sort of backstory, it can be pretty dry. But yeah, I've read it. I like that a lot.
Are there any documentaries that were like a good primer? I did watch one documentary someday, and it was about a guy who ended up on trial for murder or something. But oh no, it was actually like it was more broad about the whole era and like the hysteria that it caused with like people who lived in, I think it must have been Norway at the time.
Yeah, like Oslo and
Church
stuff. around there.
fires. It was about a bunch of church fires.
Yeah. There's a really good one, Until the Light Takes Us, which I actually think is streaming on even YouTube. You can probably find it, which is a lot of people describe it as like almost a companion to the Lords of Chaos. And they're actually supposed to be making a movie out of Lords of Chaos. But yeah, Until the Light Takes Us,
Do you
I
think
would
that's
say
the one I
check
saw,
out.
Lords of Chaos?
No, you probably saw Until the Light Takes Us. Like
That
that's
sounds right.
it kind of tells like the whole story. But
Even
yeah,
as
that
somebody
one's
who
really
like
good.
the music doesn't do much for me, the subculture is just like endlessly fascinating.
That's kind of my thing too. Like I really get interested in like sort of these groups of people that get so extreme into like anything.
like horror
it's-
movies per se.
Yeah, like it's really interesting to me like that these guys get so over the top. Like they're running around like burning down churches and stuff. Like it's interesting. Like it's almost like going to a Guar show. Like you don't have to like their music to, kind of be entertained by what's going on there. So
To appreciate the lead singer being birthed out of like an alien vagina.
yeah, exactly. Like,
That's just art.
Subtext: Joe's trying to get me to go to a Guar show in Chicago.
oh,
Like,
we're
as-
totally going, Mark.
Also, I'm gonna have nightmares about Casey's avatar there. We lost him
Yeah.
on video again.
Oh no, I'm still here.
Can you?
I hear you.
Yeah, there you
Huh, I don't know why I disappeared from video.
go. Yeah, Deathgasm.
Internet.
Gasm. Such a good suffix.
Sure.
Goes with anything.
Snackgasm.
Candy corn gasm.
Although I do have to admit, I did like the one guy's idea for the name of the band with like 12 S's strung together.
But even that was another scene though. Even like the whole joke about band names, it's like, it's such an old joke. It's funny. It was still funny, but it's one of those things.
Yeah, sure.
All right then.
Fish gasm.
Tell me how you really feel, bro.
What's next week?
Crimson Peak.
Crimson Peak. John better feel better by then because he's been like super turgid about this movie since they first announced it. And I'm kind of with him.
I'm semi-turgid about Crimson Peak. It looks pretty good.
Yep.
I love me some... Who's that? That's Jessica Chastain, right?
Uh-huh.
She's just delightful. And
Guillermo del Toro, I think
Guillermo del Toro. Just looks really cool. Maybe if it does good, he'll finally make At the Mountains of Madness.
We could hope.
Mark, are there any Instagram contests still going on or no?
If you are of the, however many people are listening live, you can still enter today. But it is at the end of the day today, which is Wednesday.
Midnight Eastern Standard Time.
Is it Thursday or Wednesday?
It's
Thursday?
Wednesday right now.
Wednesday. Yeah. So get your entries in if you're listening live. Otherwise, by the time you hear this, we will have picked a winner already.
Awesome. And don't forget to check out Toptober.
Toptober.
An incredible collection of lists written by all of our menagerie of writers just in time for Halloween. Get your Halloween prep on.
The Bloody Good Horror Brain Trust is churning through it. It's a good month.
Casey, how do people find your 31 Days of Halloween if they want to see that stuff?
You can head over, you can search for Cinema Fromage on iTunes, or you can go to cinemafromage.com where I'm posting them every day. So I'm up to 14 days straight I've been podcasting, so.
Awesome. And
yes,
just
it's getting a little squirrely.
Finally tonight, Joe, how do you get your hair to look that good?
It's a secret. I don't want to give that out because then it's going to be sweeping the nation.
Right. All right.
I appreciate it though.
Deathgasm. Next week, Crimson Peak. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll talk to you soon.
Adios.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye-bye.